Welcome to Absurdist Asylum. I'm your host, Jason Velarde, and as always, I'm joined by filmmaker Brad Cousy. This is one of our longest and most fun episodes so far, so strap in and prepare yourself for movie night in the Asylum.
I was talking to their friends, and the wedding should only be like 30 minutes or so. They said that they're just doing one of the, I don't think it's the drive-through chapel, but it's something similar.
Yeah, there's a lot to do in Vegas. You should look at, you can rent exotic cars there for the day, and they're actually pretty cheap.
Yeah, I plan on being too intoxicated to drive an exotic car out there, but I did think about it.
Well, I mean, they say, when will you ever be able to drive an exotic car? But when will you ever be able to get a DUI in an exotic car?
I mean, I'm just waiting for Absurdist Asylum to kick off so I can, buy that exotic car and then get a DUI and then, live the life.
The police are like, oh, it's Jason Velarde. Okay. Oh, sorry, sir.
The dude from that podcast that no one's ever heard of.
Yeah, we better not book him. He's a celebrity. Right.
He's a real folk hero, as they say. So speaking of Vegas, is that the movie that we're talking about ends like pretty abruptly on a shot of Paris in Vegas. Before I actually say what movie we're talking about, I want to do something a bit new. You know what 6 Degrees of Kevin Bacon is, of course.
Of course.
So I wanted to do 6 Degrees of Kevin Bacon from our last movie to this one. Now, it was actually infinitely easier than I thought. It was 4 steps. I think I got it in. As our listeners know, our wide body of listeners know, we watched Skip Trace as our last movie, and that had Johnny Knoxville as one of the leads. Well, Johnny Knoxville was in The Ringer with Katherine Heigl. Katherine Heigl was in Knocked Up with Paul Rudd, and Paul Rudd was in Avengers Endgame with Chris Pratt. And Chris Pratt is the star of our movie, Jurassic Park Fallen Kingdom.
Dun, dun, dun.
Dun, dun, dun. So that was actually much easier than I expected it to be. I think that you got to start from the less known actor in Johnny Knoxville and work your way to the Chris Pratts.
You got to start on the C-list actors and work your way up to the A-list.
The Jack A-list. So the reason I chose this movie is because I genuinely believed that it was the worst out of all the Jurassic Park movies. Of course, there's Jurassic Park Lost World, Jurassic Park 3, Jurassic World, and then Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom. I genuinely love the Jurassic Park movies. My first theater experience was me being probably too young to see Jurassic Park in theaters, and seeing it in theaters, and I have a distinct memory of being scared shitless of the Tyrannosaurus Rex chase scene and wanting to leave. And then I have a memory of being out of the theater and being damn proud of myself that I wasn't Dad, we need to go, because I was scared of this movie. And it's I loved dinosaurs when I was a kid. My favorite dinosaur was the Stegosaurus.
So was mine, actually.
Oh, how crazy. So I wanted to ask you, Brad, before we get into Jurassic Park Fallen Kingdom, will you rate the 5 Jurassic Park movies for me?
Rate them in order, or just
as from what you think is the best to what you think is the worst?
All right. I would say the original is probably the best, because when you have a crazy idea of dinosaurs, recreating dinosaurs to living with humans, I'm sure the studios were like, what are you talking about? That's crazy. You know how much money that's going to cost? Let's do it. And then they did it. An idea like that is so original and so raw that it's the first experience you're ever going to get with dinosaurs, right? So anytime you do a sequel or even a prequel, God forbid they do a prequel, the idea like that majestic feeling is already gone because you already have one film in the bank. Kind of like the way they do books. So I would say the original was the best. Then I think they just gradually started getting worse.
Okay, so you would say like 1 through 5 is Jurassic Park, Lost World, Jurassic Park 3, Jurassic World, and then Fallen Kingdom?
I would definitely put Fallen Kingdom at the very end.
And so I would 100% agree with you on your first and last choices. I think that Jurassic Park, like, it's definitely got a bit of like a nostalgia hook for me. Like, it's in my skin. Like, I loved just like having that as a memory for me, just being, as a kid, 1994 or 5 when that movie came out, just like loving dinosaurs, having a movie that genuinely got a reaction out of me. Like, as a child, I was frightened of this movie, and then going through, and then I definitely think that Fallen Kingdom is the worst of the 5 movies, which is why we picked it for our show today. But I think I differ a little bit with you in 2 through 4. I think
I think Jurassic World was actually pretty good because they such a long time between their last movie and then the reboot, and I think the reboot did it justice.
Yeah, actually, I think Jurassic World, and a lot of people might hate me for this, but I think Jurassic World is number 2 on my list, just because it was like generated to invoke the nostalgia of Jurassic Park. Like, and it has that setup that we always wanted to see. Like, what if this was a functioning theme park, like a functioning place that people wanted to visit for vacation, not just like a test run like it was in Jurassic Park. I think number 3 would be The Lost World.
I really like The Lost World. I would say that's my third choice.
Okay, so we're not differing too far there. Yeah, The Lost World was great just because, one, it was almost like a treat for me when I was a kid because I had Jurassic Park on VHS. I had Jurassic Park 3 on DVD when it first came out. And so I got to see those kind of whenever I wanted. But Jurassic Park, The Lost World was like, it was something that I only got to see it when it was on TV, or it was kind of like a story that I like didn't know as much about because I didn't have the opportunity to watch it as much. And it also brings back, like, it's like, what if there was a T-Rex times 2? You know what I mean? Like, it's just an extension of how good the first one is, and it really plays as a sequel to the first one. And that's kind of why I put Jurassic World in front of it, because I think just Jurassic World is kind of its own story. Like, it's the start of a new saga. And I think I may have already mentioned how I feel about like the Star Wars prequels and stuff like that. Like, I like new stories, and I like the idea of like taking this world we know and love and making something new out of it, and not just kind of like following the path of the first one laid out in front of us.
Yeah, expanding on top of it.
And then, so obviously that leaves Jurassic Park 3 in the 4th place, which Jurassic Park 3, I know, you had William H. Macy and Tia Leone in it. And it's like, that was a movie I said I had it on DVD. I watched a lot of it when I was a kid. And I just think that I can't even remember the name of the dinosaur, but the T-Rex type dinosaur with like the spine on it, that was like,
oh yeah, that's right.
It just wasn't as convincing of I mean, it was convincing, but it wasn't as domineering of a force as the T-Rex or the 2 T-Rexes in Lost World, or the fucking Indominus Rex in Jurassic World. Like, I think that it was a Jurassic Park movie, and I think that's one of the reasons why I didn't like Fallen Kingdom as much, is because it Fallen Kingdom like really starts off as a Jurassic Park movie and kind of moves into something else towards the end, and we'll get to that. But I think that's why I think I put Jurassic Park 3 over Fallen Kingdom.
Well, I think the reason why the first one is my all-time favorite is, my family's a big hunting family, and every year we'd go up in the winter and we'd hunt. We'd be in a trailer, and we'd be in a trailer for like 1 to 2 weeks, depending, right? My dad only had 4 VHS tapes, and that was Men in Black, the original.
Yes.
I don't remember the other 2 because we mainly stuck to Men in Black, the original, or Jurassic Park, the original.
Uh-huh.
So I've seen that movie, I don't know, at least 10 times over my 26-year lifespan so far. So that's probably why it's my favorite one. But I will agree with you, and I might even move up Jurassic World to be my second, just based on what you said as well. As they did a very, very well done reboot with Chris Pratt, and the fact that they did have a functioning park that went all to shit, that raises the stakes, because in all the other movies it's like, well, what if we had people here? Maybe that was a budgeting issue, or maybe they never wanted it to go that way. You'd have to really talk to the original director to know why they chose that.
Yeah, I think Jurassic World is like that movie that we always wanted to see. Like we wanted to see not just like this group of 5 to 6 people like we had in Jurassic World interact with these creatures. We wanted to see how these creatures react on a mass scale.
Would have been nice to have Samuel Jackson lay down a motherfucker line one more time.
I mean, any movie with Samuel L. Jackson is a creative win. It's like
very true.
He didn't make Captain Marvel, but he certainly improved it.
I liked it a lot.
Yeah.
But anyways, we're talking about dinosaurs, not superheroes.
Yeah, I can only talk about Avengers so damn much on one podcast.
I feel like we always mention it at least once.
It almost has come up every single time. Like the Avengers are just kind of in the zeitgeist right now for us. But let's get into Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom. This movie opens on underwater scene where this team is using like a submarine to harvest a sample of the Indominus Rex, which was the big bad from the last movie, the Jurassic World. And they like are on this expedition to like chop off a piece of the skeleton that is underwater, which I thought was kind of weird, because at the end of Jurassic World, isn't the Indominus Rex eaten by that giant underwater fucking dinosaur?
Yeah, but I think in the beginning of Jurassic, the Fallen Kingdom, that big ass dinosaur, the big water one that ate the Indominus Rex, that's the same monster in the very beginning. So my guess is he eventually pooped out a bone or didn't eat all of it immediately. I don't know.
Yeah, I
think that's why they tied that dinosaur in, because like, wait a minute, how did they get this dinosaur bone if this one got eaten by this one?
Yeah, and I mean, honestly, when you see them underwater and it's a Jurassic Park movie after Jurassic World, somebody's about to get fucked by that thing. I'm trying to remember exactly what type of dinosaur it was, but that giant underwater like shark dinosaur, Mosasaurus is what it was.
You got to before I did.
Yeah, it is honestly, in my opinion, one of the scarier things in any of the Jurassic Park movies. Like, I'm the type of kid who would like freak out in a pool because I like saw Jaws one too many times, like, and that sort of shit, where it's just like, I don't know, something about like being on the water and having some like devious carnivorous shit floating underneath me is entirely more frightening than running around an island full of Tyrannosaurus Rexes and Indominus Rexes and Velociraptors. Like, anything under the water is scary as shit to me.
Probably because you don't see it coming, and at least on land, you could try to run away. You may not make it, but you can at least attempt and have a good chance of getting away by hiding in a tree trunk or something. But in the water, you're just kind of fucked.
Yeah, and the team is like there specifically to get this sample of the Indominus Rex, and they have to have a guy on land to get them into the like gate sanctuary of the, I guess it's called a bathysphere in the pardon me, in the movies, is where this like Mosasaurus is hanging out. And I guess the movie itself, like the main section of Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom, is set 3 years after the Jurassic World movie. But I was reading around, and apparently the director says the scene where they're harvesting this piece is actually just like 6 months after the end of Jurassic World. So it's like the fact that the guys are like, everything in this lagoon should be dead by now is just inaccurate.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that there was ever some kind of time sequence in the beginning of the movie saying, you know, at least a timestamp saying, hey, this was 6 months after this event happened.
Yeah, definitely there wasn't. But in doing the research that I found, the director, I've been saying his name like 3 times all day, J.A. Barona, I believe it is. J.A. Bayona, not Barona, said that that sequence in particular was set 3 to 6 months after the Jurassic World. So it kind of makes sense how that creature's still floating around and there to fuck stuff up. But the guy who, I feel bad for, the techie guy who is like there to open up the gate and kind of like radio in this, that, and the other, because he's there and the mission's basically done at this point and they just need to get home. And all of a sudden the T-Rex comes out of the woods and chases him down. The guy barely makes it away from the T-Rex by jumping on like the drop down ladder that this helicopter leaves. It's like a very like high action scene, very high action moment. And the T-Rex grabs a hold of the ladder, like shakes him around. They're like saying, cut the ladder, get rid of this guy. Like, we don't want to die because this guy's, you know, hooked up by the T-Rex. And he gets away. And then the scariest shit in the world happens. Like, the fucking Mosasaurus comes out of the water and just snaps him up. And the helicopter gets away. And that's like, and then it fades into the title sequence, Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom. And it's like, not only does that guy not have a name, and it's like, I know movies like have the nameless victims of like the henchmen of the bad guy or whatever, but it's like, this guy, he wasn't doing anything wrong. He was helping collect the DNA sample. He doesn't, you know, but he
didn't deserve that.
Yeah, it's like the lady who played the babysitter in Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom who was watching the kids. Like, I don't know if you remember, but she gets that like,
she gets taken away by the pterodactyls. I think
she gets torn up like for no reason at all, because it's like, you know, in a lot of the Jurassic Park movies, like the bad guy gets the bad death where he gets like ripped apart, torn apart by the dinosaurs. It's like there's a couple of scenes in these movies where like people who've done essentially nothing just get ripped up for, I mean, it looks
just
like
being in the wrong place.
Yeah, just like being in the wrong place, the wrong time type person.
Could you imagine like looking online for a job and seeing a Craigslist ad to be like, hey, we're going to go to this island and, you know, recover some data. And he's like, oh, okay, cool. Then they'll hire him. And then all of a sudden, wait, there's fucking dinosaurs on this island? Are you shitting me? Like, you're not paying me enough to do all this. And then you die.
Yeah, I think, I mean, for some like secret op shit like he was doing, I would not be down for that. But if it was like, go into the island and do some research like they or do like the recovery mission like they do later in the movie, I might be down for that. But like the like, you know you're in trouble if you're doing some shit in secret on a dinosaur island. Like, nobody's gonna know you were there, nobody's gonna know why you died.
Yeah, you're just collateral damage at that point,
essentially. Nameless,
hiding the secret.
Yeah, nameless and faceless.
Another thing I didn't realize is, well, I was thinking about this earlier actually, they have all that tech to like recover data and DNA from this bone in the bottom of the sea, right? Are you telling me like their radars didn't pick up this gigantic monster floating nearby? Like, there's no way they didn't see this thing at least, I don't know, 50 miles off.
So yeah, that kind of goes into the opening line of the movie is everything in this lagoon should be dead by now. So I think they just went in there like swinging dicks, too cocky, and just like thinking, oh, we'll be fine, everything's fine here. And it's like, have you not seen any of the other 4 movies? Like, nothing is fine on these islands.
Maybe get more than just one helicopter with 3 dudes in it.
Yeah, I mean, and it's like they had no intention of recovering the dudes in the submarine either, because like, I don't know if you noticed, but the helicopter just fucking books it afterwards, and the submarine's still underwater. So it's like,
I wonder if that submarine got away though.
I mean, don't know. Sure, it's possible, but it's not on screen, and it's like, I mean, they're off the coast of Costa Rica somewhere. It's like, it's not like it's easy for that sub to get back. Yeah,
I'm sure they all got eaten too. I bet if you check the cast list, they're in there as deceased.
So after that scene, we get treated to something that we see a lot in movies these days, and I think a lot of people kind of set it as an easy out, but we get treated to like a newsreel exposition where we get told that not only is there a volcano on this island, but there's also like a congressional hearing as to whether or not we should be assisting these dinosaurs, getting them off the island, because they're living creatures and, you know, animal rights and all that. Which, I mean, I'm not anti-animal rights, but I mean, how many times do we got to fuck up? Like, do none of these people remember what happened in San Francisco in the Lost World? Was it San Francisco? No, it's San Diego. Oh, yeah. In the Lost World, like when, you know, let's bring a T-Rex to the San Diego Zoo, and that T-Rex just like fucks everything up. Do they not remember what happens? That's actually like my big issue with the Lost World too, is like, we saw Jurassic Park. We know that they had a test on this island where they're going to create a theme park. And then, you know, X amount of time later, I think it's canonically like 20 or 22 years after the events of Jurassic Park, there's a fucking whole like theme park that people are just going to. Like, we're just gonna go hang out with the dinosaurs. Like, nobody knows what happens in San Francisco or San Diego and on Isla Nublar the first time. Like, it's amazing to me that like you have Jeff Goldblum in this congressional hearing as Dr. Ian Malcolm, like testifying about, yeah, we should probably just like let these things die like they were supposed to be dead. But we have no indication that he was anywhere during the creation of the Lost World, or not the Lost World, the Jurassic World like resort where thousands of people flock to every year. Like,
he probably wanted no part of it.
But he probably doesn't want any part of this, but he's there like saying like, I don't want any part of this, and you guys should definitely stop fucking with it because I know what happens. I was in 2 of these movies. Like,
yeah, he's kind of like the voice of reason. Like, hey, I've been around this for a while now, and actually, that's the one of the things that I didn't like about Fallen Kingdom was the pandering. So when you make a movie, right? Doesn't matter what movie you're making, if you can pander it to any kind of current events that are happening in that certain point in time, it's going to do better because the movie's going to, you know, it's more current, you know, hitting these parts in history. And around 2015, we were having a lot of these new movements going on, you know, like, you know, just a lot of like animal rights activists, like you were said, or, you know, just, you know, everybody love everybody, like a lot of like almost hippie stuff going on. Like, oh, you can't kill them. They're innocent dinosaurs. Like, they're innocent monsters that are murderers. Whether they eat meat or not, they can still trample you to death. And so I think during that scene with Jeff Goldblum and there's all the protesters that are saying like, let the dinosaurs live. And then they have that office where they're like trying to get petitions and votes to like save the dinosaurs. Can you imagine walking into a gas station? You know how they used to have the cup there that said save the whales, but instead it says save the dinosaurs, and it's just got a list of dinosaurs. Would you give your 25 extra cents to help save those dinosaurs?
I mean, that would have to depend a lot on my experience. If my experience is watching the Jurassic Park movies, like, fuck no. But if my experience is like, oh, dinosaurs are majestic and beautiful, maybe I would think about it. But yeah, I
wonder if any of those protesters ever were at the. I don't think there's one protester that was at that park when all this shit went down, and then also goes, yeah, no, seriously, let them live.
Well, yeah, and so you're right. There's a point where we find out that Claire Dearing, who's Bryce Dallas Howard's character, and Franklin Webb, who is Justice Smith's character, and Zia Rodriguez, who is Daniela Pineda's character, are all like part of this like dinosaur advocacy group. And actually, the Zia Rodriguez character is on the phone with a senator, and she's like, no, I can't afford to spend, like, I've never seen a dinosaur in real life. I can't afford to spend my life savings to go to this island. And it kind of like raises that exact point. Like, you know, you have people like Ian Malcolm who have been there, like been in the shoes, like walked the walk and did the talk, saying like, we should really just not do this. And then you got people who are like young and idealistic, and like they want to live in this world where dinosaurs exist because it's all they've known. And it does kind of bring up like an interesting, maybe not political, but just kind of like mirror to society, where it says like some of these people who just don't know what the actuality of it is, and some of the people who do know what the actuality of it is are like pleading, saying like, no, let's not do this.
Another thing I thought was weird is during this like activist like group where they're trying to get petitions and trying to get government officials on their side, right? Bryce Dallas Howard's character Claire, right? I think it's Claire, right?
Yeah.
She's like the president of this like advocacy group. But she was also there when the shit went down. She was the main biologist, like, we're not the main.
She wasn't the biologist. She was just like the head of business, essentially. She was like the frontward facing.
Yeah, she was, you know, a well-known name during Jurassic World when that all happened, when all the shit went down. And so I wonder if like, and it's throughout this movie as we talk about it, her character is trying to like redeem herself about the events that happened in Jurassic World, but seeing the destruction and god awful, you know, murders that happened from dinosaurs to humans, you think she would be against it, but she's not. She's all for saving them.
You're right. It's interesting to see the idea that like her character is all about making things better, and then we come across Chris Pratt's character Owen Grady, who's like, why would we go back? Like, what would be the benefit of that? And it's, I don't think we mentioned the whole reason that these dinosaurs are in danger is because there's a volcano on this island, which begs the question, like, they built this whole Jurassic World theme park on an island that has an active volcano on it? Question mark.
Well, it was dormant. I remember them talking in Jurassic World saying the reason why they got the land so cheap is because there's a volcano, but it's been dormant. There's no cause for alarm.
Interesting. So I guess
let alone that's just to set up the next fucking movie.
I mean, I don't remember that, and in the first book, the Michael Crichton Jurassic Park, it does mention that there is a volcano on Isla Sorna, or Isla Nublar. Isla Sorna, which is another question that this movie brings up, is the movie that The Lost World and Jurassic Park 3 took place on, which also brings the question is like, everybody's panicking to save these animals on Isla Nublar, and they've created,
what about the other ones?
They created this sanctuary island for these dinosaurs to go to. once they if they do get rescued, but nobody mentions East Lasorna except for Mr. Lockhart, who is the old guy. We'll get to it in just a second. He's the old guy who like finances the whole thing. Actually, Benjamin Lockwood was played by James Cromwell, and he was the one who calls Claire in that office to
offer her the job. Yeah,
offer her a job to go help save the dinosaurs. And it was specifically they want to use her security clearance at the park to track the Velociraptor Blue, who was like the leader of Chris Pratt's little gang in the Jurassic World movie.
Well, I think they needed her clearance to just get into the park because she was like one of the only members that was able to go anywhere she wanted on that park. But yeah, that was her main purpose was, hey, let's get her credentials, let her think that she's doing good, and then we're just going to leave her on the island and see what happens.
Well, yeah, and so they get to the island, and true Jurassic Park Lost World style, they're immediately double-crossed by the tracking team that Eli Mills, the guy who is Mr. Lockwood's kind of like not heir to the estate, but like the guy who's in control of his estate. He sends a tracking team with them to this island, and they're almost immediately double crossed by them to as soon as Claire kind of like tracks down where Blue's at, they almost immediately double cross them, just like they sent that whole second team in the Lost World. So I do like how this movie has some like pretty obvious nods to the other movies, which I think is, I don't know, a lot of people call it pandering or what you will, but I think it's important in a franchise to kind of like nod to their roots, if you will.
They're definitely keeping the theme going. When you have a movie like this, you don't want to change it too much because then it just gets way too confusing because you've already changed the movie so much. As a reboot, you don't want to change so much of it to where it doesn't tie to the other movies. And then it's just basically dinosaurs is the only thing that connects the two. So I think, the whole double cross and the backstabbing definitely emphasize the correlation between all of the Jurassic movies because there's always some sort of double cross or backstabbing going on. There's also money. Money was also a big motivator in almost every movie.
I mean, money makes the world go around.
Money and fame.
Another thing that this movie does that really ties it into the other movies is they go back to almost the exact same filming locations as they had in Jurassic Park, not the Lost World, but there's a lot of like physical locations that they filmed in Hawaii that are the exact same places that they filmed certain scenes in Jurassic Park.
Oh, I don't think I caught that actually.
Yeah, I was watching a little featurette, and they were talking about how, in Jurassic Park when they see all the Gallimimus running at them, and they all run and kind of hide by the tree while the Gallimimus are jumping over them.
Is that the same scene when the volcano blows up?
Yeah, exactly. Where the volcano blown up, and they're all running downhill from it's the exact same location. There's just more different types of dinosaurs and stuff.
I thought that looked familiar, but I couldn't figure out where. I wasn't sure why it looked familiar. I just thought, I thought maybe it's just, it's one of those scenes that like happens in a movie like this. I didn't realize, that's the same location. Almost the same kind of action too. Like,
yeah, it was a visual nod to that first movie where like people were running from, and actually if you watch the scene closely, the first dinosaur to run out of that volcanic ash is a Gallimimus, like the same type of dinosaur.
It'd be interesting to put both scenes up side by side, do a side by side comparison, and see not only if they match like the action, of being chased by the dinosaurs into the middle of the rubble, but I wonder if like shot size and the color correction, I wonder if any of that also matched, because that's pretty much paying homage to a certain scene of a later movie or an earlier movie.
Yeah. So after our heroes, we'll call them, like Claire and Owen, are double crossed, there's a scene where Claire and Franklin are trapped in this bunker and they're being like stalked or attacked by a baryonyx type dinosaur, and the lava starts flowing through the cracks of the ceiling as the volcano is exploding. And through my research, I actually found like the lava, if you watch it, is clearly CGI, but they actually did something really cool to get the proper lighting for the effect, because they said if they had used like LEDs or any other type of lighting, it wouldn't have looked genuine. So what they did is they soaked kitty litter in flammable liquid and used a series of 12 nozzles to like pour it through different spots in the ceiling as it was on fire.
Oh, so it looks like molten lava.
It looks like they get the right lighting for like flame effects and stuff like that, and then they CG.
Oh.
It was like, wow, that is not something I would have thought of, and it's quite impressive.
I wouldn't have thought of that either. What I was going to say is, if you had asked me how I would have done that scene, granted, I don't have a huge budget and I don't have that kind of know-how to, hey, let's do this kind of stuff. I would have definitely thrown a bunch of LEDs, colored like red or orange LEDs, a mixture, and using water elements to try to get that color as it's falling down. That's how I probably would have done it. But the kitty litter idea, that's not a bad idea. I might actually use that at some point.
Yeah, I thought it was kind of just speaks to, you know, why the people that make these movies are in the positions that they're in, is like they have like the creative, like, instead of like having an actual light, let's like light some shit on fire. You know what I mean? I think it's really impressive how they come up with it, because you look at the way the light reflects off of the characters' faces as they're being attacked by this dinosaur, and it does really have a, you know, like a glow, like a warm glow effect that you wouldn't get from, you know, a certain type of LED or regular light or something like that.
Yeah, you do need some. I mean, lava's not really a liquid; it's more of like a molten solid.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hey. But yeah, that's another funny thing is, as you mentioned, that kitty litter. Like it's not some big expensive thing that they created or all CGI everything where it took millions of dollars. No, it's just basic, you know, kitty litter that your cat takes a shit in every day.
Well, yeah, and it's cool how they, like, there was a certain point where the pinnacle of CGI was the Transformers movies, where they had like the proper light reflecting off each individual surface of the like Transformers as they're transforming, and that was like, it looked amazing, and it's like it was like pinnacle technology. Like, you didn't get these lighting effects in CGI before that, but I like how they went back and they're like, that's not really what we're looking for here. We're looking for something, like, it would have been, I got to assume, extremely difficult to get the right lighting effects on these live action characters' faces from a CGI effect. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I've actually been watching a lot of like visual effects breakdowns recently, just, you know, for my own knowledge. So when I'm in production, I know how to do it more appropriately or accurately. And a lot of things that I've noticed is a lot of production companies, whether it's a big budget movie like Jurassic Park or a short film, is everyone, like, they place the lights where they think the lights need to be. But when you're rendering CGI or visual effects, you don't think about where the light should not be, where the shadows need to be casted, because not only does light help sell the effect, but so do the shadows. If you put your hand in front of your face and you're facing a light, you're casting a shadow on your face from your hand. So you have to recreate that CGI wise. You have to make it as real as possible to sell the effect. And now that I think about it, when you go back and watch that part, not only are they pretty much only lit by the lava coming in, I think that also helped sell that effect.
Yeah.
There's maybe one emergency light going off and it's like red, and I think it's flashing if I remember correctly. Otherwise, it's that lava flowing in that's lighting that whole scene. And that probably what helps sell that effect.
Yeah, and I like, it's just amazing the ingenuity that goes into play getting that effect right.
Plus, and another thing is making the dinosaur look more realistic, because if there's too much light, you'll see too much detail. If you see too much detail, you might start seeing imperfections of the CGI and visual effects. Therefore, you're not like, oh, the dinosaur doesn't look correct. but with the shadows and being in a more darker area, it kind of hides that mysterious section. So it just makes everything look more realistic. Out of all the scenes, I think that maybe looks the most realistic.
Yeah, and before we get too far away from the bunker scene, going into this movie, like, one of the reasons I wanted to pick this movie for the podcast is because I really thought that I disliked Justice Smith, the Franklin Webb character. Like, I thought I just didn't like him as an actor. And I think after watching this movie over and over again, he plays like this like terrified nerd for most of the film. And I just watched Detective Pikachu not that long ago, and it was really just like
Me too.
It was just like an okay movie. And his character, I think it's more just like the scared nerd trope that I don't like, and he's just like really good at playing that trope. Like, there was a lot of times in this movie where the director deliberately didn't tell him what was going to happen to get that like actual scared reaction out of him, which is something
that happens a lot.
Yeah, I hear a lot of directors use. But I think the idea of the fact that he's just like the unofficial face of this like scared nerd trope that's going along in movies is kind of why I didn't like him, because watching this movie over and over again, I realized that it's not him as a person or an actor that I don't like. It's just the idea that like you can't be nerdy and just like a regular person. You have to be like a terrified, like, needing to be saved type person.
Almost like a stereotype, like a movie stereotype. Like, I know a lot of nerdy people in my real life, and they're not always scared about everything. They're not always shut-ins. Some people just really like tech and video games and stuff. But I think that's a movie trope that most directors give nerds, is like, all right, you're a nerdy kid and you're scared of everything because you're shut in and all you do is play video games and hack code.
Yeah.
So you don't know the real life. So the real life is supposed to scare you. And
yeah, honestly,
I get that, but I think, I don't know, I think that's more of a director's issue. Like, he's a great actor, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
He can only do what the director wants him to do.
Yeah, like I said, I think that's what I realized after watching this movie a few times, is that it's not really him that's making that decision. It's just kind of, his body is typecast, and he's good at playing that type of character, and so I don't think it's really his issue. And it's like, I know, like we know a lot of nerds in our real life, and some of the nerdiest people I know are some of the like more like adventurous people that I know. Like,
I'd say more ballsy too. Like, they're not afraid to speak their mind, kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, because they've been speaking their whole mind on the internet for years and years and years. So while this whole scene in the bunker is going on, the Owen Grady character and also the veterinarian character, Zia Rodriguez, go along with this tracking team to hunt down the Velociraptor. And it's mentioned, like, in the beginning of the movie, like, you'll never get within a mile of this raptor because you can, she'll smell you from a mile off. And then they find this raptor, and it's immediately surrounded by soldiers as if it had no idea it was like that, these people were like 20 yards away from it or something.
Yeah, like they made it to be this badass hunter that you'll never catch. And then 4 or 5 minutes later, you're like, oh, there it is. Oh, that was easy.
2 trank darts, like, and so the blue takes 2 trank darts to the neck as they're trying to capture him, and Pratt does it. I don't even remember what it's called, but it's like Pratt posing or something. It was a meme for a while where it's like hold out your hands and you're training the dinosaurs, and he's telling this team to like get back, and the guys are still they're not listening to him. They're pointing guns at him. At the dinosaur, and the Velociraptor, of course, attacks one of these soldiers. And as it's attacking the soldier, the guy pulls out a gun and a real pistol, because apparently all these guys are only armed with tranquilizer darts. Like, that's the only real gun in the movie, it seems like, is the pistol the guy uses to shoot in the chest.
Well, would you want to be the one responsible for killing a dinosaur that you're going to sell for millions of dollars?
I mean, you're right. They probably didn't equip them with the proper weaponry, but it
Because they don't care if you die; they care if the dinosaur lives. Really,
right is all about that dollar bills, y'all.
dollar bills.
So now, yeah, the dinosaur has been shot in the chest because she was attacking this guy, and his like last ditch effort was to pull out his sidearm and shoot her in the chest as she's on top of him, and so that kind of like sets up the whole idea is like they spend a lot of the movie trying to save, maybe not a lot of the movie, but a decent chunk of the movie, like the middle act of this movie, trying to save Blue from this gunshot wound. And that actually brings to mind, like, so essentially they get all these dinosaurs off of the island after some like Jurassic Park things happen. They run from dinosaurs. They see a T-Rex. There's a Carnotaur that gets attacked by a T-Rex. And it's interesting. In all the Jurassic Park movies, there's like a progression of dinosaurs that the T-Rex proves it's better than. Like, so it's like in the first Jurassic Park, T-Rex is greater than all except for 5 velociraptors, and then in the second one it's 2 T-Rexes is greater than all, and then in Jurassic World it's a T-Rex is greater than the dinosaur with the spine on its back. Not Jurassic World, Jurassic Park 3, and then in Jurassic World it's T-Rex is better than Indominus Rex. And then in this movie, you get the great scene where the Carnotaur, which I don't know if you remember the CGI dinosaur movie, the Disney one.
Oh, yeah.
Those were like the main bad guys was the Carnotaurs. And so it gets, it like shows up, does this like, where it roars and like scares everybody. And the T-Rex just shows up and murks it out of nowhere. Like, and go ahead.
I was wondering like why they picked the T-Rex. And I know it's the logo of every single movie that Jurassic Park's been about, but like why the T-Rex? I'm sure there are, and they've showed other like dinosaurs that are way more capable of way more destruction. But every movie they always show the T-Rex being the badass. Like the Indominus Rex, I'm pretty sure the Dominus Rex, if they wrote the story differently, that Dominus Rex would fuck up the T-Rex. It's got midget arms.
I think really it's one, a nostalgia factor. Like the T-Rex was the big bad in the first movie, but also you're right. It is in fact the face of Jurassic Park. Like when you think the whole Jurassic World franchise, if anything comes to your mind other than just like either the T-Rex roaring at the end of the movie and like he's inside the facility and the banner drops down that says "Welcome to Jurassic Park," or the T-Rex chasing after the Jeep, like there's not a lot that like cements that franchise in your mind other than the T-Rex.
I would say if you had to pick the most famous dinosaurs out of all the movies in order, T-Rex would be number 1, probably Velociraptors would be number 2. And then it's probably a fight for number 3 with whatever animals are
I honestly think number 3 would be like the Brachiosaurus that they see at the beginning.
Or the Brontosaurus or something.
Well, yeah, the Brontosaurus, Brachiosaurus, the long-necked dinosaur that you see at the first dinosaur they see in Jurassic Park and the last dinosaur that they see on the island in this movie. Because as they're getting off of the island, like all the dinosaurs they didn't save are being eaten up by this volcano.
I'm glad you touched on that because that's where I was wanting to lead to next.
Yeah. So go ahead.
Well, and this is actually a trope from the first movie. So in the first movie, when the doctors are hiding up in the trees and just escaped all these dinosaurs, the one friendly dinosaur that shows up is the Brontosaurus. And they're eating the leaves, and they're like, oh, my God, look at the Brontosaurus. And that's when that big music chime hits, like the famous Jurassic Park.
It's called Welcome to the Island by John Williams.
Yeah, money. I'm sure that dude made bunches of money.
Oh, yeah, John Williams is I'll get out.
Not only does the theme song of the full franchise show up at that particular moment, it's the only dinosaur that I guess, wasn't attacking the humans or showing them kindness. Now we skip all the way to Fallen Kingdom, and spoiler alert, lava is killing everything. And so the humans, they eventually make it to the boat, the rescue boat, when they've got all these other giant dinosaurs, kind of like the Ark, like Noah's Ark. They took as many dinosaurs as they could save. But the one dinosaur you see at the end of the pier, who is either it has to wade off into the water and die of drowning or be murdered by lava, is the Brontosaurus. And I think I cried the first time I saw that, like not bawling in the movie theater, but I had some tears the first time I saw that.
It was emotional. And actually, you kind of just sent it home for me, because I didn't even really think about the fact that it was like the only dinosaur that was like decent to them throughout the whole franchise was these like long necked dinosaurs, brachiosaurus, brontosaurus, whatever you want to call it.
Arguably that's the biggest land didinosaurs.
And yeah, that's the one that like gets just kind of like the slow, like heartfelt death at the end of it. I didn't quite realize, like I kind of drew the similarities of that was the dinosaur in the first one, but I didn't realize it was like, yeah, you're right, that's the only dinosaur that is like any good to them throughout the whole franchise of the movies.
And I feel like that you don't go watching Fallen Kingdom without at least seeing one or two of the other movies, right? That's not your first movie you start off with. So I'm sure the filmmakers decided, well, like we want to have this heartbreak moment right here when the dinosaurs are dying, because in the beginning of Fallen Kingdom, the whole point is to save the dinosaurs, right? And they save a handful of the dinosaurs, but there's thousands of them on the island. You can only save so many. You only have so many boats and helicopters. Well, which one are we going to have be the last one we see on that island? Oh, let's make it a pull at the heartstrings moment, and let's make it a Brontosaurus. And I did. I don't think there was one dry eye when I went and watched it on opening night. I mean, I've seen some fucked up shit in movies, right? And that one really got to me. I was like, man, that is really fucked up.
So you say you went and saw this actually in the theaters. I didn't see this until it was available. I bought the septuple pack on Vudu, where I got all 5 of the movies in one go. And I didn't see Jurassic World until it had been out for a while. In the theaters, was like this? You said it had a pretty emotional impact for you and maybe some people you went to. Did it like strike you in the theaters where there's like a pretty big thematic change in like the last third of this movie? Did you catch that in theaters? Because the first time I watched it, I didn't really catch the thematic change, and I think that's one of the reasons why I didn't like it. Like one of the reasons why I picked it for the show is because I didn't really notice it until I started like digging deeper.
I would say when you're in the movie theater, you're there with, at least 150 other people, right? And so watching it for the first time, you're there for the experience. You're not really there for, picking apart and figuring out what worked and what didn't work. So when I watched it in theaters, I would say it was more of like we were all conjoined in this one experience of watching, this movie. And right after that moment happened, I could feel the tension in the theater, because everybody was like heartfelt for this dinosaur that was just, being burned alive. And luckily they didn't show all that. A lot of smoke covers it before the lava gets to the Brontosaurus. But I mean, I heard people sniffling and I heard people crying, and there's definitely a beat where everybody's just like, the movie theater is dead quiet, not including just the people being quiet, but like there's no sound. The only sound you see is the doors coming down from the ship. That like after that, there's a good beat of just dead silence, and I think that was a really smart move on the filmmaker's part. It's like, all right, give everybody a moment, let the silence break, back into the story, and I thought that was really smart.
So you are right. Like, I'm not disagreeing with you. That wasn't quite the thematic change that I was talking about. There's a point in this movie where, like, after they're off of the island, they're helping the the blue character kind of, get healthy. And that's actually, before I get too far away from it, one of the most impressive practical effects in this movie is on that. Two of the most impressive practical effects in this movie are on that ship, where one, they're helping the blue raptor.
Oh yeah, the dinosaurs. Yep.
And the
T-Rex.
the blue character is on this table, and I didn't realize until after watching like some featurettes of this movie, there's actually like up to 12 people underneath that table controlling an animatronic dinosaur like raptor. And that's another moment in the movie where they did like these jump scares without telling the actors, is when the blood squirts up in Justice Smith's face, the Franklin character.
They didn't tell him
that was going to happen. So they get some like great reactions out of it, and it's all practical. Well, for the most part, it's not all practical. They have to have some like eye fluttering movements and stuff like that aren't quite built into the animatronic. But also on that ship, you mentioned the T-Rex. There's a whole like head and shoulder mounted T-Rex animatronic that's built into the back of this semi that the characters basically ride while they're trying to get like a blood transfusion for the blue raptor who's like hemorrhaging at this point.
Yeah, they have to pull the blood from the T-Rex for a blood transfusion to save the life of the Velociraptor because their DNA is so closely matched.
Essentially. So, and the T-Rex, like I saw how it was built. It was basically just like a plastic shell that they pulled like a foam rubber like dinosaur skin cover over. But I mean, I feel like they could have done that with just like kind of like how Game of Thrones did, where they've just like got green screen dragons, but they're just like basically green screen stuffed animals that they CGI over. But they actually built like a full head and shoulders rig of this T-Rex in the back of the semi, so they could have the Dallas Howard character like essentially rodeo. They mentioned the rodeo. They ride on top of this dinosaur, and it looked like she's actually there.
Yeah, actually, and I think that might be like paying more homage to the older ones, the older movies where it was all animatronics. But anytime you can do a practical effect versus a visual effect, the practical effect that effect sells so much better because it's real. It's something that you can touch. It's something the actors and talent can react to or not react to because it's actually physically there. Whereas if there's just one big ass green plush thing, it's kind of hard to react to that. Even as a trained actor, I'm sure it's different if you have a practical effect versus a visual effect. And did you actually see how they built that rig of that truck? They took out the engine and like used the engine bay as like there's like three dudes moving levers and controls and buttons to like move the whole thing.
Yeah.
It's crazy. Like that alone must have cost, I mean, at least, I don't know, half a mil to build that. I don't know.
And puppeteering in general it's amazing that we've come from, I mean, guys in raptor suits to they have like these fully functioning 12-man puppeteers where it almost reminds me of like, have you ever seen the breakdown of how the guys were fit into the Jabba the Hutt costume?
I did, yes.
Yeah, and there's like three guys inside this, and one's like specifically there for the tail, and it's just amazing how far that we've come to where, honestly, I thought the vast majority of that scene was CGI until I saw the fact that they had built the rig, and I went back and watched the movie again, and I'm like, oh yeah, okay, that part's CGI, that's the rig, like, and it's amazing that they can just kind of blend this seamlessly now.
Yeah, and the cool thing is, it's even better when they mix CGI with practical effects in the same dinosaur. They do it throughout the movie, and that's one of the main ones that they do is with that T-Rex and the Velociraptor. There's visual effects and practical effects working in conjunction with each other. I could not tell the difference. Like, I really thought that shit was real.
Yeah, without looking at it, you can't really, like, there's some shots that are obviously CGI, but without like really looking for it, you can't tell the difference between the CGI and the practical effects when they're there. One of the funniest practical effects that I heard they used was they actually had inflatable dinosaurs that they used. I don't think they were actually on camera, because from how I read it, they were just to kind of get the like the height right as far as
eye
like,
lines.
the actors. Yeah, the eye lines, exactly what the actors are looking at. And I just like never would I have thought that these movies were using inflatable dinosaurs, like, it's like got the pool floaty going on. And so I found that pretty entertaining.
I worked on a horror shoot one time, a horror movie one time, and there's this weird demonic character that's supposed to be larger than life. It's supposed to be like 10 to 12 feet tall, and we just used a stick with a paper plate with like evil looking like red eyes, and that was the character's the talent's eye line, and then we built around that model. We masked that out and built the actual character. Well, I didn't do any of that, but man, it was supposed to be one of those scenes where like you're deathly afraid, like you for sure think you're gonna die. And I was like, man, how great of an actor do you have to be to sell the fact that this paper plate on a 12-foot stick is gonna murder me? And so I feel like it's the same way when they do scenes like that where they have blow up dinosaurs. Like, obviously it's harmless, it's not gonna do anything. Plus you've got hundreds of crew members around you. It kind of takes that fear level out of you. But when they say action, you have to pretend that this is all completely real.
Yeah, and I mean, for fear of talking about the Marvel movies too much,
we're back to the Marvel movies
where they had the Thanos rig, where Josh Brolin's he's wearing his CGI capture suit so they can get all his motions and acting. Right. But then he's got the like 6-foot stick above him. And have you seen the picture of the smiling Thanos that they have? Like, it's like bearing with the teeth. Like, it's I mean, that especially would just be hard not to laugh when I had to look up at that. But just like it's so, like, they've got it down to such a science that they know that, like, not only do we need to capture this actor's motions, but we also have to have the people who are acting against this actor looking at the right face. And I remember
just have correct reactions.
Yeah, I remember, I believe it was The Mummy, and don't quote me on this, but they had it was The Mummy Returns, actually, the one with The Rock. They had tennis balls like strung up on string, where they wanted people like, you look at this guy, that's The Rock, and that's like the Scorpion King, I should say. Like, look at this. But they've evolved that now to where, they use inflatable dinosaurs or fucking cardboard cutouts, or it's like, it's kind of interesting to like think of the progression of how effects have evolved.
Yeah, I still use tennis balls. For anytime you're doing you need an eye line, but you don't have that character on set, you grab a C stand, which is just like a light stand or any kind of stand that can raise up anywhere from 10 to 12 to 15, 16 feet. So you cut a slit on the tennis ball and you pop this tennis ball on top of the C stand, and then you're like, all right, that's your eye line. You look there. And it works really well, actually, but it also depends on what kind of reaction you need them. Most of the time, we only use it for eye line. Like, don't speak to the tennis ball because you're not going to get a real reaction out of it.
So back to the story of the movie. At this point, they're on the boat, and we kind of already understand that Eli Mills, I want to say bad guy in this movie, but he's really just like a money hungry guy, which makes him bad. But he's not what I would call the bad guy of this movie. We understand that he's not capturing these dinosaurs to rescue them. He's capturing them to sell them, essentially sell them to the highest bidder for war, agriculture, sport, hunting, whatever whoever has the biggest bucks wants. And we also learned that he's created this this genetic hybrid from the Indominus Rex genome that we got at the beginning of the movie, mixed with some Velociraptor called the Indoraptor, and we don't really get to see much of it at first, except for just like a CGI image of this like dinosaur. But we learn that he's selling all these dinosaurs to kind of fund making more of these. Yeah, like make improvements or so. Yeah, once he brings on this auctioneer who is played by his name is Mr. Eversole, and he's played by Toby Jones.
I love that guy.
And so you are 100% right. Like Toby Jones is a great actor. He's been in a lot of movies, from like the Captain America movie to
Place Behind
like
the Pines.
Doctor Who. Yeah, Place Behind the Pines. Like he's been in a lot of stuff, and he's one of these actors that's like maybe even underrated because he's been in so much stuff and his face is kind of almost everywhere. But he's not.
Oh, he was also in Captain America.
Yeah, that's what I just said.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, no worries. But he was the German doctor in Captain America. I forget what.
Right. Yeah.
But there's something going on with this character that threw me off for like the entire time that he was on screen. Do you know what I'm talking about?
I mean, I know he's almost always a bad guy. He's usually never a good character, except he was a good character in The Mist.
Oh yeah, so.
But I'm not sure exactly what you're getting.
Like these teeth on him. Like he's got, I don't know if they're actually his teeth, and Mr. Jones, if they are actually your teeth. I mean, nothing by it. But he's got these like big old chompers on his front teeth that like give him this like lisp. Did you catch that? He's got like, I don't know if it's like trying to be posh and like the character's like showing that he's got a lot of money by having like really nice, like well done teeth. But like it gives him this like hissing quality to the way he talks. And it like, I feel like it was a deliberate choice by the director to have him.
Yeah, because he's kind of a snaky character.
Yeah, exactly. Like a snaky character. But it just like, I don't know, maybe it's just the fact that I've seen him in a bunch of movies and he doesn't have that, but it was like highly distracting throughout the scenes that he's in the movie.
Especially in the close-ups, because when you really see those teeth.
Yeah, he's got like a let's talk about the price of the dinosaurs. Like I mean, I don't know. It's like the one thing, because like I said, I wanted to talk about the movie and shit all over this movie because I genuinely didn't think it was a good movie until I did a lot of research and like learned about it and like kind of learned what the director's vision was going for. And so the thematic change that I was talking about is kind of, it starts when we meet this character, because it kind of goes from like a Jurassic Park running through the jungle with dinosaurs movie to almost like a horror movie. We learn about this monster character, the Indominus Rex, and we learn like, and there's a scene where he like reaches his hand out of the shadows, and oh my God, we didn't even mention the fact that like John Hammond's ex-partner.
Oh yeah, that's right.
And daughter, who is seemingly insignificant throughout most of the movie. She's just kind of like a proxy character throughout like a good chunk of the movie where we like are just viewing things through her eyes. But there's a scene where this Indominus Rex, this monster that they created in the lab, reaches out and kind of like scares the shit out of her as she's learning about Eli Mills's plot to sell off these dinosaurs and fund this genetic monstrosity.
I think you're correct about her whole character being like almost undermined, because her character is almost the only reason for the ending, which we'll get to later, and I'll talk more about that later on. But yeah, they don't really talk about her character all that much, other than she's just a frightened girl that's learning of this evil plot about what he wants to do with the dinosaurs.
Well, and I think you're right. I think that it's deliberate that they
withheld it.
They withhold a lot about like why we should even care about this character, other than the fact that it's kind of like a throwback to the kids in the first Jurassic Park movie, where like we see a lot of this through kids' eyes, and it's like, as a kid, we had this wide-eyed like shining ignorance about dinosaurs, And that's probably what, sparked John Hammond's idea in the first place, is to recreate these things, is that he's like loved dinosaurs as a kid, loved the idea of it. And so he grows up to a rich adult and then wants to start funding all this whatever to bring them back. I think the idea of having kids in these movies is like we were all here once. We had these idealistic tendencies to want to be like, to want to see a T-Rex, to want to, as a kid, like, what would you have done to see a Stegosaurus in real life? And so I think we kind of had these idealistic tendencies, and I think they kind of play as a proxy for that in this. But you're right, she does have a bigger role come towards the end of the movie. But I think the one thing that really turned me around on this movie was learning about J.A. God damn it, I've said his name 6 times today, and I still can't remember. The director. Of course, I can't.
We'll just call him the director. They love being called
Morales or Barrios or oh my God, J.A. Bayona. He styled the Indominus Rex. Like, in his mind, when he created the Indominus Rex, he pictured the character Nosferatu.
No shit.
So there's this like thematic change in the movie that I mentioned a few times, that it goes from being a Jurassic Park movie to being a horror movie. And watching it for the first time, and one of the reasons I didn't really like this movie is I didn't catch that. Like, I was like, oh, this isn't a Jurassic Park movie anymore. Like, it makes this hard change, but it was deliberate. I thought watching this movie that it was like accidental. Like, they tried to bring a Jurassic Park movie, because at this point, everything takes place off of these Costa Rican islands that we've been on for every other movie. It's all in they don't really mention what town.
The US somewhere.
Yeah, it's all in like a continental, like, mainland place. So it really takes like a sharp change. And actually, watching this over and over again, you like notice that, like we talked about in Doom, like the lighting changes. It's much darker. It's
true.
It's hard to like make things out. And I'm sure that's probably something to do with like the fact that we're going to rely on a lot of CGI for these shots, but also thematically, he wants this thing to be scary. He wants this thing to be unpredictable and formidable, and he wants it to be like a horror film. This Indominus.
That's actually funny, because there's a lot more jump scares in the middle of the second to the ending of the third act, and that's predominantly a horror film trope. There's a lot of jump scares in horror films or any type of scary movie. Look at Blair Witch Project or The Evil Dead or anything that's a horror movie. It's jump scares throughout the whole thing. And you're right, that definitely makes, not only does it make the dinosaurs look more realistic because they're in shadow, they're you can't see everything, but you understand the figure that's a dinosaur. I guess I didn't really understand. It didn't really get to me that it was a horror film until later on after the auction. And I don't think we've reached that part yet, but we could talk about it now, I guess.
Yeah, so we did mention that he brings on the auctioneer too, because he wants to sell these dinosaurs off to the highest bidder. And it does get to a point where it's like there's a clear defined line between the good guys and the bad guys, which I think some of the other Jurassic Park movies have been like a little less clear on, like, because, it's like, okay, these guys are, trying to resurrect species, and they're doing it to make money, but they're also doing it for, science purposes and trying to learn more about our past and blah, blah, blah. But in this movie, there becomes a point where there's a clear line between the Eli Mills, Rafe Spall's character, and Toby Jones, Mr. Eversole. They clearly become the bad guys in this movie at a certain point. And
I thought they were the bad guys once you figure out that they're trying to capture the dinosaurs, not for the same purposes. I think that's when they become the bad guys. But I think you're right. It's almost right up until where they start auctioning off the dinosaurs to fund their big project. You're like, oh my God, these guys are monsters. They're not the monster. The dinosaurs aren't the monsters. It's the humans that are the monsters.
And that's, I mean, saying it in that sentence, it sounds very cheesy. Like, oh,
It does.
it's not the monster that's the monster, it's the people that are the monster. But
It
like,
works.
it is exactly the truth, and it hits home a lot because you find these commonalities between these movies in real life where it's like, yeah, like none of this would have happened without human intervention. And you get the Dr. Wu character back in BD Wong, and he goes from being like this altruistic, really like bright-eyed scientist in the Jurassic Park, the first movie, to being this like, I am God type character in
Definitely has that trope.
Jurassic World and Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom. And it's amazing to see how they can kind of flip the script on you as far as like, oh, I thought the dinosaurs were the scary part of this movie, but no, it's greed and human avarice that's the scary part of this movie.
I mean, and there's still scary dinosaurs. The new dinosaur is definitely like supposed to be the biggest, baddest. Maybe not the biggest, but it's supposed to be the smartest, most intelligent. I mean, for God's sakes, humans are able to supposedly control this dinosaur with sensors and laser beams.
Yeah, so there's a part where they're auctioning off. Well, they're not really even intending to auction off the Indoraptor, but they're showing off its capabilities by showing that they've trained this thing to not only hone in on like a coded flashing laser beam, but also to attack when it hears this like coded high-pitched sound emitted from this soldier's gun.
Like a dog whistle kind of thing.
Almost like a dog whistle. And I want to see the scenes, like, because you can't genetically code that into somebody. Like, you can have a dog whose parents were highly trained, sit, stay, roll over, fetch, whatever, and then have a puppy who knows none of that. So I want to see the scenes where they train this thing to like get the laser. Like it's like you got the cat where you I want to see how they figured that out, because
the science behind the training.
Because the whole movie indicates that it's like it's genetically built into this thing, but that's just not how genetics work. Like,
well, that's the reason why they needed the Velociraptor alive, is because they needed that Velociraptor's DNA that Chris Pratt's character trained, showing that, hey, this animal can be controlled, and it's the only dinosaur that was able to be controlled. So by keeping the Velociraptor alive and getting its DNA and its blood work, you can theoretically reproduce that for their big bad guy.
Yeah, and that was another part of the movie that didn't quite track, is that they're like, we need blue because it's the only way we can control this animal. But then they go to auction it off, and they're like, no, we got this down. Just watch. There's a little laser with the sound in it. Everything's good. We got
just
this.
Watch this button.
It's just, yeah, we got this figured out. I don't know why we need the other raptor. But so at this point, our main characters, Owen Grady, Claire Denning, not Denning, Owen and Claire, they've been captured by the bad guys because they were obviously on the boat that was surrounded by bad guys, and once they get off, they kind of get picked up by the main tracker, and they're in this jail cell, and they use of course I didn't write it down, but the really thick skull cranium dinosaur to like bust through the walls of their cell and get out.
Which is a pretty smart way to get out, actually.
And it's smart, but it's like Owen only had a relationship with the Velociraptors, and then all of a sudden in this movie he's like
a dinosaur expert.
he's like come here, boy. Like he knows how to train this other dinosaur that he's had little to no experience with, to like, yeah, no, just keep bashing your head against that wall. Well, like, I don't understand. Maybe dinosaurs are susceptible to whistles. Like, that part was one of those parts that like brings me out of the movie just a little bit, because it's like he was a Velociraptor trainer, not like a dinosaur trainer. Like, he worked with this set group, and we see in sections of the movie like video recordings of when he's first training this group of velociraptors, it's just them. Like it's not velociraptors plus, cranium dinosaur that bust their walls. It's just the 4 velociraptors. And he's like, oh, that's amazing. Like I learned how to figure out, these dinosaurs can show, or blue can show empathy. And like, they really kind of put an emphasis on this lead dinosaur, which I don't think it was really emphasized in Jurassic World, that like one of these was like better than the other dinosaurs. I don't know. Do you remember that specifically?
No, not really. I do think, if I remember correctly, when the bighorn sheep of dinosaurs, if that's what we're going to call it, basically, with the thick skull.
Oh, nice. That was a good, yeah.
I think the reason why he thinks this plan is going to work is, A, it's the only plan he can think of in a very, small window. But also, I think they chalked it up to a line of dialogue where Claire's character says something like, what are you doing? Like, you don't know what you're doing. And he's like, hold on, I got this. Or then I think he whispers to himself, like, I think I got this. So, like, there's doubt in himself thinking, hey, this might fucking kill both of us, but we're going to die in this jail cell anyway. And luckily, it just happens to work out.
Yeah, and obviously, like any movie, you have to up the luck faction. It's like you got to roll a 20 if you're rolling luck in most of these movies.
True.
But and so once they're out of the cell, this thing's busted out of the cell. I love the fact that he just kind of sets this thing loose on the auction. He's just like, hey buddy, you thinking what I'm thinking? Because he sees this thing as the elevator opens. He's like, I'm putting a plan together. And so I think that kind of speaks to your flying by to the seat of his pants idea, which,
and surprisingly, when he has that idea, like that dinosaur hasn't decided, I'm gonna murder you. He just it's just written into the script to where like, oh, this dinosaur is gonna help me. But realistically, I'm pretty sure they would not have made it out of that jail cell. And if they did, that thing would have beaten the shit out of both of them.
Well, here's where my dinosaur nerd thing comes into play. While I do not remember the name of the dinosaur, I do know for a fact that specific type of dinosaur was vegetarian. It has
really?
Yeah, it's got a beak mouth and it only eats plants and whatever. So
doesn't mean they can't get beaten to a pulp with his head.
Yeah, and he obviously had to pull off some parkour style moves to get it to hit where it wants it to hit, and then to be able to make it out of there.
So finally, we get to the auction, and this is another moment that I was thinking about how they kind of play to current events. So the people that are showing up to this auction, they're not just rich billionaires. It seems more of a black market drug or gun buying deal. There's people from Russia, and they don't mention where a lot of these characters are from, but it's their accents that you tell, okay, that guy's from Russia, or that guy's from, the Middle East, or this guy is from China or something. And it very evidently becomes almost a mix between a fashion show and a black market deal, because they're showcasing the dinosaurs. Everybody's wearing suits, and all the men have brought in dates to this event, this black market. I'm going to buy an illegal dinosaur to use for illegal purposes. Why not bring a couple of girls with me to show how much of a baller I am?
Yeah.
And it mixes between a fashion show and a black market deal.
And
so essentially these dinosaurs are weapons that these people are buying. So they're not buying these dinosaurs to help farm their farmland or anything. They're going to turn these dinosaurs into tactical killers.
Or I know, or whatever they're doing. I do agree with you. There's a parade of bad guy movie tropes that come into this thing. There's the Russian guy. There's the.
Doesn't he buy like 6 different dinosaurs that are
I
like?
don't know how many he buys in particular, but there's like like you said, the Chinese like businessman type guy. There's the cowboy. Like there's one specific guy who's like wearing a cowboy hat and got the big white mustache, like Doug Dimmadome, owner of the Dimsdale Dimmadome type character.
Yeah,
like,
what the hell is he going to use a dinosaur for?
I don't know. He's like, that seemed like I like they mentioned like sport hunting and stuff like that. Like,
oh, okay.
I have a hard time believing that somebody's going to pay like multi-millions of dollars to. I don't know. I could be completely wrong. People pay thousands of dollars to hunt elephants and shit, but like somebody's going to pay like multi-million dollars to hunt a dinosaur. But
or something like that. But I feel like the main reason why all those people are there is to use these dinosaurs for war purposes. It definitely has this really heavy war presence, like a black market gun deal, or like buying, WMDs kind of thing.
That's one of the things that's like, it's a very soft-spoken line in the movie. But when they actually wind up auctioning off the Indoraptor, because they bring it out as just like here's what we've got coming up next type thing. Like, here's what you can buy. And the next time you come to this black market auction that, in the world of 2018, surely the government has no idea this is happening. Nobody's ever tapped a phone line in this world. But they bring up the idea once they auction this thing off, which I don't know if you remember, but the auction starts at like 22 million. And
was the highest, right? That was the highest price.
No, that was when it started for the Indoraptor. And it goes like 22, 23, 24, 25. And then it cuts away for a while. And then when you come back, they just say sold, and they don't actually say what it sold for. But if you look on the screen, it says it. I can't remember if it was 44 or $45 million that this thing finally, because they got the screen that comes up.
Oh, that's right. The bank transfers.
Yeah, they got the big presentation style screen. But it winds up getting auctioned for 44 or $45 million, and the guy Henry Wu character, Dr. Wu, Dr. Wu's character, the geneticist, is like, "What the fuck are you doing? This is just a prototype. We're not trying to sell this." And the guy's like, "Relax. We just sold. This is selling for millions of dollars. We'll make another one."
Yeah, I remember he says we'll make more.
Line. Yeah, he says, yeah, but they're going to too. Like, they're going to make more too. And I think that's another thing that drives me crazy about this movie is that like the smart characters that we're supposed to really like and like root for throughout this movie are tricked and like outdone by increasingly stupid people. Like the tracker tricks them at the very beginning of the movie, and he winds up getting murked. And this guy who's supposed to be like A+ businessman is auctioning off this dinosaur because he sees dollar signs in his eyes, but he doesn't think about the fact he hasn't copyrighted this thing. Like, nobody knows about this but him and the geneticist that made it. So as soon as this thing's gone for $45 million, that's the last dollar he's ever going to see from it, because whoever bought it's just going to make a bunch more. Like,
or try to
get the trademark on that motherfucker.
Yeah, the Henry Wu character, Dr. Wu, he's not the only one, I'm sure, that studies that field. Like, I'm sure there's somebody in Russia or somebody in China or whatever that's going to be able to figure out how to how to reverse engineer this fucking dinosaur. I don't know, maybe not. Maybe they walked away the technology. But it seems like the fact that he goes, "Oh, we can just make more." Like, how? Like, wasn't the whole point of you needing the Velociraptor
right
was to make more, but you sold the beta product?
Yeah, it just seems like he completely forgets what business is. He's just like,
he
money.
saw the money sign.
Oh yeah, he sees them dollar signs. So before we get too long into this episode, let's get to kind of how this movie ends. They auction off the Indominus Rex. Chris Pratt says, "We can't let that thing leave the building." And of course, inevitably, it gets out of its little cage. And this is where the tracker character kind of gets murked because, well, he's the one who let it out. He has this affinity for stealing dinosaur teeth, and he winds up tranquilizing this thing with 2 darts, which, I mean, the darts are like very wildly in like what their effectiveness is. So they'll either put down Chris Pratt for like an hour and a half, or one of them will put down Chris Pratt for an hour and a half, or he thinks 2 of them is going to put down this dinosaur long enough to, go in and like yank a tooth out of its mouth. And so he goes in and tries to yank this tooth out of the Indoraptor's mouth. And there's a point where this fucking dinosaur like smiles at the camera. Did you catch that?
Yeah, it's like it was playing dead. And that's the thing is they underestimated how smart this animal is, because not only is it mixed between God knows what plus a velociraptor and I think bits of a T-Rex.
Well, it was the Indominus Rex, which was like all the like fucking like chameleon and all the like other shit they fucked around with in Lost
All
World.
the intelligence,
or not Lost
yeah.
World, Jurassic World, and then plus a velociraptor, which is like we've seen
the smartest dinosaur. They talk about that.
Yeah.
In every movie, they've talked about how smart the velociraptor is and how cunning and stuff it is. And when I saw the smile, I was like, oh, no. Well, then again, I knew the second you opened that was going to happen. But yeah, when you see the dinosaur smile, I was like, I don't think we've ever seen a dinosaur smile.
Yeah, it played back into that like horror movie trope where not only is this thing like bad, it knows it's bad. And there was a interesting bit that I read where they kind of analyzed as far as like how a reptile actually looks versus this character, and the dinosaur itself has like a lot of like saliva and like mucus in its mouth. And there was like an article that like actually theorized that this Indominus Rex was actually like physically sick this whole movie as well.
Oh, okay.
So the dinosaur itself gets out, and now it's roaming free around this mansion setting, and
people are dying all over the place.
People are dying, and the little girl that we mentioned earlier, we find out that she's in fact a clone of John Hammond's partner's daughter, and that's the reason why him and John Hammond weren't partners anymore, because he wanted to clone his daughter after she passed away in a car incident. And I don't know, the idea of a clone in this movie, like a human clone in this movie, like it fits right in because they're fucking around with genetics and like making creatures out of nothing. But it felt a little forced towards the end.
I felt like they wanted to push the bar a little bit farther, because in every Jurassic movie, they've cloned the dinosaurs, they've redone dinosaurs. Then Jurassic World's big thing was we've mixed dinosaurs, and now they're probably sitting in the writing room thinking, all right, we got to go bigger. What are we gonna do now? We've already mixed dinosaurs, we've already done all this. Somebody came up with the idea of, well, what if we like use that same technology to clone a human? I actually was not that far like that off put by that idea, because when you're doing movies like this in sequence like this, you need to have a bigger stake or something like more advanced to carry the next film. But the fact that we don't get that information until like the third act.
Well, and it kind of brings up back to, we spoke about how they were kind of hiding like why this girl was relevant in the movie. And so it didn't feel quite forced in that point, just like the idea that human clones were forced. And then we get to the end of this movie where, I mean, things play out like you would. The bad guys get eaten and the good guys, save the day and get this. I mean, the Indoraptor is essentially, they're like fighting in this house, and they kind of get to the rooftop, and the Indoraptor gets attacked by the blue dinosaur, the blue Velociraptor, as kind of like a show of like, it knows that what it is, and it knows that these humans are the good guys and that the dinosaur is the bad guy, or the Indoraptor is like, attacking the people that it knows.
Right.
And so once it kind of comes to a head, the fact that this girl's a clone is really what leads to the most interesting part about this movie. I didn't like this movie because it felt shunted to me. I mentioned a few reasons why other reasons why I didn't like this movie, but the ending just felt like, I don't know, like I said, shunted to me. And I didn't realize until researching this movie that this is movie 2 out of a trilogy. Did you know that they're making another one of these?
Well, I know they were supposed to be making another one, but it's been a while. It's been almost a year and a half.
So I understand what you're saying. Like, it's been a while since we've heard anything from this franchise, but even at the end of this movie, when they were talking about how it spun into another third, the date for the third movie is not till like July 2021.
Yeah, I do know that they were working on another one, because the way they end this movie is, this next movie is the movie I want to see because of the way they end it. Because, and then we'll get to that here in a second. I also wanted to touch back on the horror trope that you mentioned. I didn't realize this became a horror movie until this dinosaur is running around this big ass mansion house trying to lurk and find and kill all the other characters. That's when, to me, it realized, oh, this is more of a horror type, kind of like a Jason Voorhees movie almost, where he's
what?
hiding around, you know what I mean, and killing everybody in the movie. But back to your point, the trilogy movie, and we could probably just talk about the ending now. We're right there.
Yeah, I think that's probably smart. Go ahead.
Well, so the way they end this movie is, the Indominus Rex, eventually gets killed. Spoiler if you haven't seen it. The Velociraptor prevails over this new big bad dinosaur and ends up killing it. And I believe it was on the horns of a Triceratops.
Yeah, it was. They had like a dinosaur museum in the atrium of this building that they're fighting in.
Right, and they fall through the glass, and the bad dinosaur and the Velociraptor, they're spinning out of control. But just before the last second, the Velociraptor kicks or spins the bad dinosaur. I can't remember that damn name, and then it just gets impaled by the horns of this Triceratops. And then the Velociraptor is like the big badass. And this is the only time that we see the Velociraptor as the victor, not the T-Rex that comes later.
Yeah, I mean, the name of that, the Indoraptor. I almost
Indoraptor, that's right.
Then, I can't tell you how many fucking times I misspelled Indominus Rex and Indoraptor when I was writing my notes for the show. I couldn't tell if it's Indo. I just, the names are confusing just because one is derivative of the other. It's the Indominus Rex and then the Indoraptor. So, but yeah, it comes to a head of a fight scene on the rooftop over this atrium, and the Claire character uses the Indoraptor's targeting system with the laser pointer and the sound to trick it into fighting over this glass rooftop, and eventually the blue raptor comes and fights it, and they fall through the ceiling, and they do kind of like a crazy slow motion spin in the air. And the Indominus Rex gets pierced by the Triceratops horns. And so after that, it feels like the movie's okay, this is breathe a sigh of relief, the movie's over. And they find out that, in fact, all these dinosaurs that are in the sub-basement of this building are getting gassed out by, I don't remember what type of gas it is, some sort of like
some
toxic
poisonous gas
or
that
something
was
like that.
it was like it was keeping the ecosystem alive or something.
Something like that. But so they have to go down there and they're forced with this big decision, and they're like, do we let these dinosaurs out and save them? Like that was our goal. The whole movie was to save these dinosaurs, or do we just let like it come to an end and they die? And like I said, I thought this was the end. I didn't know that they were making another Jurassic Park. So when the big like what moment happens,
yeah,
it really felt broken to me. It felt like, oh, this is how they're gonna fucking end it. And so this is maybe probably just my like not being informed, but the clone, the girl, I don't know if I can remember her name, the little girl clone, Maisie Lockwood, who's obviously Lockwood's granddaughter / daughter, who was cloned. Like while they're talking about like what they're bantering back and forth, like, should we do this? Should we let them out? Should we let them die? Then she just fucking hits the button and just lets the dinosaurs go. And
well, actually, Claire's character runs up to get ready to hit the button to release them, right? So she flips open this like case, and there's a big old red button, and she's about ready to press it. And her character throughout the whole movie, her whole goal was to save these dinosaurs, right? And then at the last second, she stops herself. And I think she looks at Chris Pratt's character, and then she closes the little plastic box back over the button. And that's her decision. Like, we're going to let them die. There's, that was her main decision. And then as her and Chris Pratt are talking about like how that was such a good decision, like, all right, we made the right decision. This is how the movie's going to play out. These dinosaurs are going to die. You can hear him choking, and you can see him like dying in the background. And then that's when you hear like the doors open, and then the characters turn around, and it's the little girl. And I can't remember what her line was. I think she says,
"They're like me.
They're like me. They're just like me." And basically, like, if she gets to live, why don't they get to live?
Yeah, she's like, I'm a genetic creation, and they are too.
Yeah. And I was like, oh man, like I wanted to not like that part, but I actually thought that whole piece tied the ending together. Without that piece, it would make no sense.
So I had like a similar reaction, except knowing what I know now, I feel differently about that reaction, because I was like Jesus Christ, now we've got fucking dinosaurs just roaming about the world.
Your feelings just millions of people.
You're just gonna let it be that way? Like, oh, welcome to Jurassic World, Jeff Goldblum's line at the very end. Like, now we've got dinosaurs just out in the open, and that's the end. Like, I had no idea they were making a third movie, and so I think that's why I chose this movie for our podcast, because I really did not like it because of the ending of this movie. And now that I did some research, which is like, thank goodness for the podcast, because I love Jurassic Park and I hate to hate these movies, or I hate to hate this movie. And so now that I like did some research and found out like, oh, they're planning a third one, where we get to find out how the whole world reacts to having fucking, pterosaurs flying around, or velociraptors running through the desert, and like crazy stuff. And so I wanted to know, Brad, you're a seasoned filmmaker. You've got written scripts. You've pitched movies before. Nobody knows what the plot for Jurassic World 3 is. What's your pitch?
Oh man. So my pitch, definitely Jeff Goldblum has to be in the next one, because for this whole Fallen Kingdom movie, he said, kill them all, let them all burn. They cannot be alive, right? Because he's been through the shit so many times. This is technically the third time he's been through the shit. So, and he's got to be some kind of leader, like maybe not like a bad guy, but like a neutral character that is there to fight against the dinosaurs. Like, this is just me randomly thinking on a whim of like creating a scene but like he's in front of he's in front of a group of like ragtag hunters, and he's got like a Rambo rag around his forehead, and he's got a big old gun, and he's like, we're gonna go kill these things. I've been telling the government for years we got to kill these things, and so like now he's gonna go and do it. What if he becomes the protagonist in the next movie, or the antagonist in the next movie?
Oh, okay. I see.
Granted, I don't think that's how they're gonna write that.
I mean,
but
Jeff Goldblum was a great antagonist in Ragnarok, which we've talked about. Like Taika Waititi did a great job of making him like he's not a bad guy in the traditional bad guy sense. He's a bad guy in his intention, but he's actually like a really nice like you meet him and just talk to him. He's like very personable and a nice guy, but like if you find out what he's actually up to, he's really not the greatest guy.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing is when you think about bad guys, from their perspective, they have a complete reason of why they're doing what they're doing. You know, Thanos wanted to eliminate half the world for his own, not just his personal reasons, but in his mind to save the universe. That was what he thought was right. So in this next movie, let's just say these events unfold where Jeff Goldblum decides, I'm going to go and kill all of the dinosaurs with a ragtag group of hunters because that's what I believe is what's going to save this world. But in another perspective, that could be completely wrong. But this is actually the movie that I really want to see because we've seen dinosaurs on a secluded island. We've seen them, you know, for 3 movies just be murdering a bunch of people. And then there's Jurassic World where the attraction finally opened, the big moment with this whole series built up to, right? And it fails horribly. And now this is the movie where now there's real stakes. It's not just an island way off the coast. You're in the US, there's thousands and hundreds of millions of people here, and dinosaurs are now present in life. So I want to see how the fuck they're going to write this movie because there better be a lot of destruction, but it better not turn out like one of that stupid King Kong movie where he comes to the city and destroys everything.
Yeah, you don't want to see like the last 20 minutes of not Jurassic World, Lost World, like part 2, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
you kind of want to see like an established, like, okay, dinosaurs have been around for just a little while, so this is how we've coped with them. And you want to see like what the pushback is going to be like.
Yeah.
And
in my opinion, I would say I'm pretty sure whatever happens in the third movie, which is probably going to be the final, I don't think they should redo anything else after this next one.
There's not much more to do unless you do prequels like we were talking about.
I mean, there could be a chance that they somehow, you know, climb aboard Elon Musk's shuttle and now they're in space. And so now we've got dinosaurs in space, and that movie, you know, then you've got Matt Damon and his Martian family on Mars defending their home planet against invading dinosaurs.
How many dinosaurs can you fit inside a Tesla Roadster? I'm really wondering.
I mean, remember in Jurassic Park, the first one, they had all those dinosaur eggs that hatched.
Yeah. Oh, right.
Load up all the dinosaurs onto a space shuttle.
I just want to see the movie where they tie Jurassic Park 3 into the first Dinotopia movie, where it's great. Like Jeff Goldblum's like, I guess I was wrong. But no, I think
I just want to see
you're like on a good path. Like,
I just want to see a velociraptor with a astronaut helmet on.
I mean, and who wouldn't?
I just want to see that so bad. But the outcome of this next third movie, my guess is no matter what happens, all the dinosaurs are going to die. Like if I'm going to pick an outcome, humans are going to win. All the dinosaurs are going to die with a lot of destruction.
I don't know. Sounds biased to me. I want to see the movie where they have human dinosaur hybrids, and that's how we get to the Super Mario Brothers movie with the little like dinosaur.
That's where it leads to.
Yeah, the
dinosaurs go into the sewers, and then all the plumbers that are fixing the New York plumbing system end up either getting radioactively bit by dinosaurs and turning into dinosaurs, or they have sex with the dinosaurs.
Ooh.
either way, now we have the Goombas, and then it ties into the whole Super Mario franchise.
Fantastic. Well, Brad, I think we've said all that we can say and more. Do you have anything else that you'd like to say?
Actually, I want to know your opinion. What do you think the next movie is going to be? Like,
well,
from a realistic standpoint, I was just making shit up randomly on a whim. But
so I honestly, I will be thoroughly disappointed if there's like I said, it's got to be already a little bit established that the dinosaurs have been around for a while. People are kind of coping with it, but there's got to be some sort of pushback at as the conflict of the movie. But I will be thoroughly disappointed if there's not some sort of dinosaur sport. Like if they're not like riding around like the fucking Gallimimus or some shit and polo or like a T-Rex jousting event or maybe just like I don't know. T-Rex jousting is the best my mind's got right now. But
I'm thinking like cage fighting.
Well, I mean,
like
that'd
dinosaur,
be
like cockfighting, but with dinosaurs.
You just have like a dude in there with boxing gloves go up and punch up a fucking like Stegosaurus, like bam, bam.
Well, I was thinking more like dog fighting, but with dinosaurs.
Yeah, I know. I was dino versus dino, but yeah,
but
I honestly, I think that I would really like to see what the world is where dinosaurs are already established, like we're living alongside them. And then there's got to be something to make something starts pushing back. Like we can't have these dinos around anymore. And then they obviously have to call Chris Pratt because he's signed for the next movie.
Yeah. I would say in all seriousness, the reason why the Fallen Kingdom movie was so pro dinosaurs is because the dinosaurs were not living in your same space. They were not trying to kill you day in and day out. They were on a remote island way off the coast somewhere. Now that the dinosaurs are here, I'm sure it completely changes. I'm sure the nation or whatever, they just start trying to nuke them everywhere.
Yeah.
And we'll see what happens.
Cool, man. Well, I certainly appreciate you watching this movie with me and being on the show. This was actually great fun. I had a good time. If you are online, we just hit Spotify and Google Play. So look up Absurdist Asylum to listen to your favorite podcasts on Spotify or Google Play. Also, we've been on YouTube forever, Absurdist Asylum, youtube.com. And on Twitter, we are Absurdist Asylum, no apostrophe, and on Facebook we have Absurdist Asylum with the apostrophe. And if you'd like to email us, we are absurdasylum@gmail.com. Brad, thanks for joining me on this one.
No, thank you for talking about dinosaurs with me.
I mean, you gotta nerd out. It's what we do.